Hi viewers, let's see the app we are going to develop in the next couple of lessons. The app is connected to the Firebase database, right? And you will see there's a main menu where you got employee options and listing all employees. This table view controller we have put here, right? And when you click on employee details, you will be taken to a page where you can add, insert, search, delete employee data, right? So let us say in this Firebase database, you can see in the background, let's say I want to search for records and delete them, right? So let's say I select one and search. You can see it loads the data from the database. And let's say if I delete it, right, it deletes the data from the Firebase real-time database. That's awesome, right? So let's start. Let's say if you want to insert a new record, right? So you can say employee number one, let's say Anne, right? And let's say a salary of 50,000, right? And let's say Anne is from Melbourne, right? Awesome, right? If you click save, you can see it real time updates a Firebase database. That's wonderful, right? That's about search and delete. And let's say if you want to change the salary of J, right? So you say you can search for J first using the app, right? Let's say you search and it says salary of J is 30,000. Let's say you want to make it to 40,000, right? Let's say you're going to make it, change it to 40,000 and just click save, right? You will see that it gets updated in the real-time database. That's awesome. That's wonderful. So save, delete, search functions are working. Not only that, you can just go and change a few stuff. Let's see. Awesome. So then once you are done with that, you can swipe it and list all the employees, right? That's another feature of the app we are going to develop. So you can see the data. Say, let's say you got 1, 2, 4, right? So let's say see one Peter, Anne, and Jay is there. Let's swipe this down and let's insert a new record, right? Let's say we insert record number 3. Let's put some sample data here. Okay, so let's save the data for Frank, right? Awesome. And now if you swipe down and if you go and check the list of employees, you can see Frank is there. That's an awesome feature of this app, right? And there's another nice thing of this app, right? Another awesome feature. So if multiple users, just assume if multiple users are viewing this app, right? The app you are going to develop has real-time synchronization features, right? Just assume these are two users using the app, right? And if one user add a new employee, let us say a new employee record, let's go to the bottom, say employee record 5, let me put the data first. So just assume if one user save, see what will happen to the other user phone, right? So if I click save Mary's details, awesome. See, the database got updated and on real-time synchronization, the next user will see the data being inserted, right? So that is an awesome feature of this app you are going to develop. But it's very important that you have to make sure to look at the next couple of lectures in Firebase database programming, that is part 2, part 3, until we complete this app. It explains all the theory and the practical knowledge which you need to know about developing this app, right? Okay friends, we are very excited to show you how to develop this app practically, and let's do it now. Hi viewers. So this is the lesson is Firebase database programming part 2, right? Let's see what's in this lesson. Tools used is going to be Xcode version 11.4.1 and Apple Developer Docs for referencing. Prerequisite, you will have to look at the following previous lessons on table views in objectives. I'm sorry, it's this, so this Firebase, right? So let's see. Okay, well, so I updated it. So it's previous lessons on Firebase and table views in Objective-C, especially Firebase database programming part 1 and table view previous lessons on static and dynamic content. You have to look at some of the previous basic lessons in Objective-C in this series as well. So in this session, what are you going to learn, right? You'll add Firebase to your iOS project, right? You will create your Firebase project. You will register your app with Firebase, right? You will add a database configuration file, right? And then you'll add Firebase SDKs to your app. These are the steps you have to follow actually. Then you will initialize Firebase in your app, right? And then with respect to the Firebase real-time database installation and setup, we have already done the first step, create a database in the previous lesson and configure the rules in the previous lesson, done. So here we will be adding the real-time database to your app, and you will be setting up the Firebase real-time database, and also you will be using CocoaPods in this process. Lesson plan is going to be practical demonstrations, right? Okay, so let's go and start the practical demonstrations. So looking at the developer docs, Firebase, and if you come to the real-time database section, iOS, right? And get started section, you will see the steps to follow initially, right? Installation and setup on iOS. Prerequisite is you have to install the Firebase SDK, right? So let's see whether we have done it, right? So adding the Firebase, add Firebase to your project, right? Prerequisites are mentioned, right? So first thing is to create a Firebase project. So we have done it in the previous lesson, right? So that part is done, right? And then register your app with Firebase. Okay, so we have to do this now, right? Okay, so let's do that now, right? Let's register our app with Firebase. So for that, I'm going to create the app in Xcode, right? So let's make a new project, right? File new project, right? Let's create a new project, right? Single view app. Let's click next, right? Let's give a meaningful project name. Okay, so I have given a name, Firebase Database Programming Part 2. Make sure the language is Objective-C for this. Click next, right? Then you have to give a location, right? Let's give a location. Okay, so the Xcode project is created and I'm in the initial page, right? Let's see what's next, right? So the project is created. Let's go into the documents, right? And let's read what's here. Okay, it says go to the Firebase console, right? That's where we were earlier, right? Meaning this is the Firebase. So I had my database here, right? So if I click on Firebase, so this is where it's asking us to reach, right? Okay, let's, and then when it say go to your Firebase okay, console and click your app. So basically what you do is on your Firebase landing page, right? You click on your app, right? So this is the app we created, right? Earlier, the Firebase data. So you click on that, right? And then when you read this, it says click on add iOS, right? So which is this one, see, iOS, right? So I'm going to click that now, right? Click it, right? And then it's talking about iOS bundle ID. Same, it's talking here, right? So it's asking us to give the iOS bundle ID, right? So where do you get this iOS bundle ID? You have to get it and put it here. So where is it? It's here in your Xcode project, right? If you look here, you can see it's the bundle identifier. So what you have to do now is you have to copy this. Okay, so edit mistake. You have to copy this from here, right? Just copy it and then go to the Firebase console, right? And you put the bundle ID, right? Just make sure you put the exact thing, right? For this to work, right? Awesome, right? So we put that, and what does it say next, right? Let's read this now. So it's giving a very important warning. Make sure that you enter the ID that your app is actually using, because you cannot modify it after you register that, right? So make sure you give the proper one, right? Very important. Okay, and then it says click the register app. So let's click on the register app, right? So what you are doing is you are registering this iOS app, right, into your Firebase project, right? And then if you follow the instructions, it says download these files, right? So download the Google service. So let's do it now. So just download this file, right? Very important. Okay, I'm going to download the file, right? Let's click download. Okay, so file got downloaded, right? What's next? Then it says add this file, right, into your Xcode project, right? So it's asking to add this file into. So let's go and add it to our Xcode project, right? So let's go to the Xcode project. Let's click here, right? Let's start with this. Okay, and then to add it, let's right click, right, and say add files, right? Add files to the project, and from the downloads, just add that file what you downloaded, right? Awesome. So you are done with that, right? What's next? Let's see what's next, right? Once you are done, click next, and then you have to follow these steps, right? So you have to run these commands, right? So you have to say pod init, right? So this is to do with the CocoaPods, right? So for you to know more about CocoaPods, look at our other lesson in this series about CocoaPods introduction. So it says Google services use CocoaPods to install and manage dependencies. That means when you are doing this Firebase database programming, you need a lot of libraries to be used. So it's managed using CocoaPods, right? So we have to go and run these commands, right? So what I have to do is, there are a couple of ways of doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a console, right? And then what I'm going to do is, right? I'm going to say, right? So I'm going to go into a console, and then I'm going to a terminal. Actually, I'm going to go into a terminal and, right, let's close this. Let me start a terminal. So in a terminal, you have to make sure that you go into the folder where you have your project, right? So I will be going into the inside my project folder, right? So I'm going to, now I am inside my project folder, very important, right? So when you are inside your project folder, once you are inside that, you have to run, you will be running these commands, right? Let's start with that, right? So over here, I'll be copying this command, right? Copying this, and I'm going to put it here, right? And I'm going to run, right? So during this process, if you get any errors such as CocoaPods or pod is not installed, please look at another reference about installing CocoaPods, which is look at our other video on CocoaPods for you to see that, right? Okay, so now you run that command, right? Awesome. And then next thing it says, open your pod file and add this, right? So where is your pod file, right? So if you look at your project, you will see, right? If you go into your project, right? So let me just go into the project. Let me open it. So if you open your project, right? In your project, you will see there's a pod file, right? So to open this pod file and add that instructions, right? So just copy this from here and carefully go and add it into the relevant section in the pod file. So it says pod for Firebase part 2, right? So over here, right? So I'm going to add it just here, right? Okay, right? Awesome, right? And then let's save this file. Save, let's close this. And then we have to run this command, pod install. So I will copy this from here and I will go to my terminal, right? And then run that command, right? Very important to do these steps, right? Otherwise your project will not work. And then it gives us some very important instruction, right? Let's read what it says right after it. So it gives a very important instruction. It says, please close any current Xcode sessions and use Firebase Database Program Part 2 XC Workspace for this project from now on. What does that mean? What this means is, if you look at your project file, after you run these commands, you will see this file, right, being visible in your project. See, normally what you open in your project is the XC code project, right? But now you have to open, instead of that, as it instructs, XC workspace, not the XC code project, XC workspace, because this is where the Firebase Firebase is configured now, right? So what you have to do now is, see, even it says here, this creates XC workspace, use this for future development, right? So let's go and close the existing project, right? This one, right? Because it's not that file I have opened here, right? For the same project. I'm going to close the project, right? And once again, I'm going to go to Xcode and open the project, but this time I'm going to open that file which was instructed to open, this one, XC workspace, right? I'm going to open that, right? The outcome will look the same when you open, right? The outcome will look the same, right? Let's see. Let's open it again. So make sure you select XC workspace and click open, right? Awesome. So you should get this file open now. Okay, so inside this file, if you open, it looks the same, right? If you look at this, right, it's just the same thing, right? Okay, but it's configured with Firebase, right? So then click next on your Firebase console, right? And then you have to initialize this code. So you are using Objective-C for this tutorial, right? So look at our other video series on Swift if you are using Swift. So first important thing is, in your app delegate class, you have to go and add this import Firebase, right? So you have to copy this from here. Then you have to go and you have to open your app delegate file, right? The app delegate class, right? And then you have to add this, right? So in your app delegate, right? So let's copy this once again, right? Let's go to the implementation, right? And just below the import, you have to add this, right? Very important, right? Let's see what's going to happen, right? So I added that. Let's follow the instructions first, right? Let's follow the instructions. So I added that, right? And then it says you have to add this line, right? So you have to copy this from here and go add it into the did finish launching with options. So this one, right? So did finish launching with options. So you have to add that as well here, right? Very important, right? To make sure you add those two. And now let's see what's next, right? So done with those two, right? Okay, click next. Done. And then it's checking whether the app has communicated with the server. You can skip it for now, right? Skip this step for now, right? Awesome. So that means you have done that part, right? But let's go and compile the project, right? With these changes, right? With these changes, let's say file save, and let's build the project, right? Product build, right? So let's build and see what's the outcome of the build. Okay, so I got the message build succeeded, right? And let's just run this, right? Just to see, you know, if everything is fine. There's nothing in the storyboard, right? So if you look here, there's nothing, right? But let's run this and see, are we getting some, you know, any runtime messages or errors or anything like that, right? It says build succeeded, right? And if you look at the bottom area of the Xcode console, right? See, now when you run, okay, you got the emulator, there's nothing because you haven't done anything. But if you look here, you can see it's logging some Firebase analytics, right? Connection enabled. So that means this is a sign of that what you did is working, because there's no runtime error, there's no compile time error, and there's no runtime error. And now it says Firebase Analytics, right? Awesome, right? Firebase Analytics. That means the configurations you have done so far is all good, right? Is working. Let's go and see what's next now. Okay, so you completed the instructions which was coming in the Firebase console, but let's look at the developer docs, right? Which we were referring earlier, right? Because that's where we were also following. So let's see whether we have done that. So we added the Firebase configuration file. Yes, we added it. Added the Firebase, so we run, okay, pod. So it says go to your project directory. We did that, you remember, right? We did that over here, right? We went to the project directory and we said pod init. We done that, we have done that, right? But now it says in the developer guides, it says to add this stuff as well, right? So to your pod file, add the Firebase pods, right? So that means it's asking to add, if analytics are enabled. You remember when I created the project, I enable analytics. So you have to follow these instructions just to make sure nothing is going wrong. So just copy this once again, and it's asking you to put it to the pods, right? So once again, you go and open your pod file. If you want, you can do it from here as well, right? So you can just click here, expand, right? If not, you can open it from the earlier place, right? What I showed you, right? So then you just paste it, and you can see we have already added this pod, so we don't need this, right? We don't need that, but the rest extra things got added now, right? So you have to save it, save, right? And you have to read the instructions, right? So once you are done with that, it's again asking to run pod install, right? And open again the X workspace. So because it's asking to run it and open, for safer side, I'm going to close this once again, right? I'm going to close the workspace. And then I'm going to copy this command, right? Carefully, right? And then I'm going to go into the terminal, right? And run that command again, right? Okay. And then it says again open that XC workspace. So what I'm going to do is, once this is successfully installed, right, I'm going to again open that XC workspace. Awesome. So I'm going to open the workspace once again. So let's say file, open, right, on Xcode, right? And once again, let's open, right, open the XC workspace. Very important, friends. XC workspace file, right? Okay, awesome, right? Then let's again follow it, right? So you are done with that, right? Then initialize a Firebase in your app. So it says in your app delegate import Firebase. We have already done it, right? So we already in your app delegate, we already see we imported the Firebase. So that part is done, right? Awesome. Let's see what's next, right? And then we added this line as well, right? No problem, that's done. That's it. You can skip ahead to the next step. So it says that's it. So the document also confirms that we have done. So what are the next steps? Next step is further understand the next things you need to do Firebase database programming. Okay, viewers, so we did a practical demonstration on this lesson, And the conclusion, let's read what's here. So what did we do here? So we added Firebase to iOS project, right? We did all these steps. We created a project, Firebase, registered the app, right? We configured, we added the configuration file, we added the Firebase SDKs to app, right? And we initialized, right? All done. And Firebase Realtime Database, we added the Firebase Realtime Database to app, right? And we set up, right? And we use CocoaPods, right? We did some practicals, right? And let's move forward, right? Reference we used was Apple Developer Docs. And what's next? Have a look at the next lesson to complete this app. It's very important, right? Because you have to look at the next lesson, then you will see how we complete the app we have demonstrated, right? Have a look at our other videos, practicals on Firebase. Have a look at our other videos on Objective-C. Also make sure to have a look at our other series on machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science, and IoT, because that is where the future is, right? So we are very excited to see you in the next lesson to complete the app. Let's meet you in the next lesson.